Good morning, third grade. Today we are going to remind ourselves a little bit about time. Time was difficult for a little bit for some of us, and so we just thought it would probably be good to go over it again and see how you feel about it. And if you're still struggling with it a little bit, then you should probably, practice a little bit over the summer so that you are ready to rock it in fourth grade. So learning targets are today we're going to write time digitally, minutes after the hour and before the hour. We're going to find elapsed time, time that's passed, and solve some word problems with elapsed time. And so I would love for you to have some scratch paper so you can write down some things with me. When you think you know the answer, you can write it down. See if you can beat me to the answer. And then we will have an opportunity then. You'll go to Think Central and do the assignment there as well. So we're going to look a little bit about the time digitally here. I also have a clock, but I'm going to wait and use their clock for now until I get down to some of these other problems. So if we look really carefully, we know that there are 12 hours, and then it starts over again at noon and goes around from midnight to noon and noon to midnight. So we're going to look here, and we look when we're doing anything with time. You need to determine which is the shorthand and which is the longhand. So in this case, we have this is the shorthand and this is the longhand. The shorthand tells us the hour and it moves slowly around the clock. And the minute hand is longer and moves faster around the clock. So if we look here, we can see that the shorthand is right before the 1. It is not yet to the 1. And sometimes if you take a piece of paper and you just try to make sure that it lines up, and you grab a Post-it note, and you just try to line it up in case you think it may be going toward the 1. And I'm going to go this side of it. And you can kind of line it up with your pencil sometimes. But we can see that it's not yet to the 1. So if it's not yet to the 1, then the hour has to be the hour before the 1. So it is going to be 12. So it's going to be 12 what? Well, now that we've figured out the hour, we need to figure out the minute hand. So we can start here and say 5, 10, actually you can draw it. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 20, 12, 45. Now you could also just start, if you remember, there's 60 minutes in an hour, so if it's at the 6, we know it's something 30. So we could just count 30, 35, 40, 45 instead of going all the way around. That would be an easier way. So it's 12:45 is how I would digitally write it. And then if I was trying to find how many minutes after the hour, it would be 45 minutes after 12. Because 12 is the last hour. Now, if it's how many minutes before an hour, then we're going to count so the next hour is 1, so we know we'd be before 1. How many minutes before 1? So we start at the 12, which would be the next hour, and we count backwards. So in this case, I'm going to do it with my pink one, and we're going to count going backwards. 5, 10, 15. So it'd be 15 minutes before 1. That's how we would say that. Okay, let's do the next one. All right, so next for number 2, again, we look for the shorthand first because that's our hour hand. And we line it up, and we see that it is after the 2. So it's going to be 2 something. It's going to be 2. And then we can't start again from here. Since it's not over here, we can't start at the 30. So we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. 2:20 or 20 minutes after 2. And then if we want to know how much before the hour, so we think about what's the next hour. Well, if it's already 2 something, then the next hour is going to be before 3. 3 comes after 2. And now I have to count backwards going this way. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. There's that 30 again. 35, 40. So it also is another way to say that is 40 minutes before 3. Most of us don't use that. This 15 minutes before 1 is much more likely to use than 40 minutes before 3. But they just want you to be able to know, like if you knew something was happening at 3 and it was 2:20 and you could say, okay, in 40 minutes, this is what's going to happen. This is where it's going to come or whatever it's going to be. Okay, next one and last one where we're actually just going to use the clock here. So again, if you have a clock and you're looking at there and you want to see where it exactly is pointing to now, we know that that 5 is super close to the 6, but it's still 5 something. So we're going to say 5, and then this time we could just count, and this one's all by 5s, but you could, so that, time before and after the hour into the 5 minutes, but we could, you know that once you get to the 5, if you need to add 1, 2, 3, like 3 extra minutes, if the minute hand was not exactly on one of these, you'd have to add in those extras. So I already know that it's 30 here, so I'm going to just start with the 30. 30, 35, 40. 5:40. So that means 40 minutes after 5. And then again, if I'm going to go to how many minutes beforehand, I'm going to say before, and then what's the next hour that's likely to have? Well, it's almost to the 6, before 6. So then we count again, starting at the 12. 5, 10, 15, 20. 20 minutes before 6. All right, so that one's more likely to be also a time that we would use the 20 minutes before something versus just after. All right, so now we're going to look at some elapsed time that is passed. And so I'm going to use the little clock for that. And so the clock, it says how much time, starting time between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So I am going to put so the hour is going to be at 4, and that's going to be at my 4 o'clock. So now I have 4 o'clock. It says 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So I know that the o'clock part's not changing. So that's not moving at all. So I just have to figure out how much time is going to pass between the shorthand being on the 4 and getting all the way over here. Now, meanwhile, that we know that minute hand would be going around all 60 each hour. But this clock doesn't do that nice little spinny thing. So I'm just going to focus on, since this is the same, how many hours are going to pass. So 4 to 5 is 1, 2, 3. 3 hours. 3 hours have passed. Now, if we say 7:45 to 8:15, 7:45 to 8:15. Now, the hour and the minutes have changed, so I can't just keep one on the other. But I can make 7:45. So I'm going to have I know 7:45 is close to 8, but not quite. So I'm going to put that between the 7 and the 8. And then 45, if I count around, I know 5 times 9 is 45, so I'm going to put it right there. Now I have to get to 8:15. So I know it's not a whole hour because that'd be 8:45. It's just 8:15. So I'm not going to be going a whole hour. So I'm not going to have hours and minutes mixed. So I'm just going to go ahead and count and see how much it'll take until I get to 8:15. So 5, 10, 15. Now it's 8 o'clock. 20, 25, 30. And now I have my 8:15. So 30 minutes passed. So here's hours, now there's minutes. Now, this one says 2:17 to 7:17. So 17, here's my 15, 16, 17. So that's where that's going to stay. I'm going to keep that. Now, the minute hand wouldn't stay there. It'd continue going around during that elapsed time, but we don't need to factor that one in. So we just need to know how much time is between 2 and the 7. So 2 to 3 be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. 5 hours have passed. And then 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, same thing. You can keep that lovely minute hand where it needs to be. 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So 11 o'clock will be there. And then as this moves around, it's going to be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. You'll notice that they also have AM to PM, or PM to PM, AM to AM, PM to PM, AM to PM, because in this case it passed the 12 o'clock. So it would either be 11 PM to 2 AM, but it's more likely you're going to have something happen from 11 AM to 2 PM, which is 3 hours. Last one is a mix of hours and minutes again. So we find 11:55. So 11:55 is going to be the hour hand's going to be super close to the 12 because it's going to be almost 12 o'clock. And then there's our 55. So there's 11:55. Now I have to count to 4:25. So first, so I think I want to leave this here, and I just want to count the hours. So I'm going to go, so it's almost 12. So I'm going to go, it's 11 something. So 11 something to 12 something is 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. So it'd be 4 hours to get from 11:55 to 3:55. So that's 4 hours. I'm going to put 4 hours on my paper. And now we have, but we're not done yet because we know we have some minutes. So it goes from 55 to 25. So now I'm going to count around how many fives, how many minutes. 5, 10, and so when it went past the 12, then the hour hand went ahead and went to the 4. So that was 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 4 hours and 30 minutes. Okay, so we're going to do just 2 quick elapsed time word problems. So you're going to see some of those today. So the first one says, Loretta left her friend's house at 3:45. She had been there for 2 hours and 20 minutes. What time did she get there? So now instead of going forward in time, we have to go back in time a little bit. Yes, I have a time machine. No, I don't. All right, so but we need to know what time she got there. So she ended at 3:45. So here's my 3:45. And she was there 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I need to go back in time for 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and so that's 3:45, 2:45, 1:45. 1:45 will give me 2 hours and then 20 minutes. So I'm going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. So I have 1:25 as my answer. So let's just see if that makes sense. Because sometimes you guys just write some things down and I go, wait a minute, does that make sense? And you're like, yeah, but you don't actually look at it. So again, so if she started there at 1:25, then she went for 2 hours, so that'd be 2:25, 3:25. Okay, that works. 3:25, and then we got to count by fives to get to 3:45. So that does make sense. So she got there at 1:25. All right, so we did that using a clock, a little Judy clock. You could draw yourself a picture if you needed to. You could draw yourself a clock and help yourself out that way, or you could maybe, if you have a clock at home, you could just use the visual picture of that. This one has a number line. You can also draw yourself some number lines. So in this case, I could use a number line for that one, the one up here as well. But let's look at this one. Lauren arrived at the Children's Museum at 1:15. First, he spent, okay, so 1:15. So first I gotta find out where that is on this number line. So here's 1 and here's 1:30. So these are counting by fives, I believe. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, so each of these little tick marks is 5 minutes. So he starts at 1:15, so 1:05, 1:10, 1:15. So this is when he gets to the museum. First, he spent 30 minutes looking at the dinosaur exhibit. Let's mark that off. So 30 minutes, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So now this is the dinos. All right, so then he watched a movie for 20 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20. This is the movie. Then he spent 15 minutes in the museum gift shop. And then it says, what time did he leave the museum? So, okay, so I need 15 minutes in the gift shop. 5, 10, 15. So this is the gift shop. All right. So then it says, what time did he leave the museum? Well, so I got to look at seeing what time this is. It's not 2:30 yet. It's 2, so 5, 10, 15, 20. 2:20 is when he left the museum. And then it asks, how long was he in the museum? So now I have to figure out how much time is between here and here. Well, 1:15 to 2:15 would give me an hour. So that's 1 hour. And then he went, so that 1:15 to 2:15, so that's here. And then 5 minutes. He has 5 minutes extra. Okay, so my answer is 1 hour, 5 minutes. But I have to see if that actually makes sense. So I'm going to just look at the times for a minute. 30 minutes plus 20 minutes. That's 50 minutes plus 15. 50 plus 15 is 65. 65, so I know there's 60 minutes in an hour. Okay, so that makes sense. All right, so my friends, you might have to draw yourself a number line to help you with some of these problems on the elapsed time, but that's okay. You can draw them. You guys know how to do that. All right, so go ahead and go to Think Central and go to the math review, May 14th, and do some time.